Hi everyone, I'm Miss Sanchez and I teach 4th grade here at Holbrook. I will be reading chapters 17 and 18 from The Pet War. Chapter 17, Saturday, March 17th, money saved $148.01. Dog walking went pretty well. With no school on Saturday, I had time for a little homework too, or I would have had time for a little homework if I hadn't fallen asleep. But I wasn't late for any appointments at least. True, dogs didn't actually walk in the direction I wanted them to, but only one dog peed on someone, so that wasn't so bad. Things were definitely looking up. Back home, Mom called an after-dinner meeting. Lexi and I cleared the dishes. "How's it going?" Lexi asked me. We waited at the kitchen table while Mom finished putting the leftovers in the refrigerator. "Awesomely great," I boasted. Lexi nodded. "Me too, I guess." But she didn't sound very convincing. "I just wish I had more time. I just wish the contest wasn't so short. But it's going by so quickly, I barely have time for anything." "Yeah," I agreed, thinking of soccer and my schoolwork and how I hadn't had time for either. "It'll be easier once the month is over." "I hope so. It's like a school report. You think you have so much time to write it, and then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks later and the report is due." I nodded. "Yeah. Or when you're supposed to read a book and instead read comic books, and then the book report is due and you haven't even started it yet." Lexi frowned. "I've never done that." "Oh, right. Figures. But I know what you mean," she added quickly. Mom closed the fridge. Lexi threw me a small smile. "Good luck." "You too." I returned her smile but caught myself and changed it to a sneer. I wouldn't give Little Miss Perfect the satisfaction of a smile. This was not the time to start getting all mushy. Not now. Mom joined us. She looked at Lexi and then at me. "So?" she asked and took a deep breath. "How's the contest going?" "Great," Lexi and I answered at the same time. "Are you keeping up with school?" "I am," Lexi and I said together. "Otto, is that true?" Mom asked, slitting her eyes and staring at me as if trying to read my mind. "You're all caught up with your homework?" "Almost." I thought of the stack of homework I hadn't started. I knew my math worksheets were sloppy and half wrong. I had turned in my book report late, and I had only read half the book. Not that I would tell Mom any of this. Mom nodded, apparently satisfied. "I'm proud of you, Otto. You're really being responsible." I forced a broad smile, but it felt as fake as a movie set. "Just call me the new responsible Otto." "I'd be even more impressed if you put your shoes and jacket away," Mom said, pointing to the pile in the middle of the hallway. My smile disappeared. Then Mom turned to Lexi. "You're tutoring students all day long, but when do you have time for your own assignments?" "Lots of time," she said. "I work on the bus and at lunch, and you know me, I always do great in school." Lexi shifted on her seat uncomfortably. Her jeans might have been too tight, or perhaps she was stretching the truth a little, but I didn't say anything. I was doing some serious seat shuffling of my own. "I'm not going to do much tutoring anymore anyway," Lexi said. "I have another idea. Better idea." "What idea?" I asked, anxious. I sat at the edge of my seat. I didn't like the sound of that one bit, but Lexi didn't answer. Instead, she smirked, which wasn't a good omen. "I'm glad things are going so well," said Mom. "But if your schoolwork starts to suffer, either of you, this contest is over and we're not getting a pet. Don't forget." "We know, Mom," I said. "Things couldn't be going better. In fact, things are perfect. Almost." "The month is halfway over," said Mom. "How are you both doing on saving money? Otto, I know you had some struggles in the beginning." She didn't have to mention the great kitchen calamity or the awful apple atrocity, but I knew what she meant. "I'm not having trouble anymore," I said, and at least that part was mostly true. "Dog walking not only pays well, but it's great practice for owning a dog. You'll be really impressed by how well I care for our dog when I win." "I'm sure Otto will be a great help in taking care of Fluffernutter," said Lexi with a chuckle. "We're getting a dog," I hissed. "A cat, baby brother." "I'm not a baby." "You'll be crying like a baby when I win." "Well, you smell like a baby who needs a diaper change, stink bomb." "That's perfume," she wailed. "Stink bomb, stink bomb." "Enough," shouted Mom, resting her head on the table and groaning. "Just remember to do your homework, and I hope you're both not working too hard." "Not me," I exclaimed, but of course I was lying. We had a soccer game coming up in 2 weeks, and I bet Malcolm was practicing that very minute. Meanwhile, my feet ached from dog walking, and I just wanted to go to bed. But if Lexi had another great idea to earn money, whatever it was, I couldn't slow down. I could play soccer and do homework and take naps in a few weeks after I had a dog. But right now, I needed to win. As soon as we were done talking, I called Malcolm and told him to come over for a business meeting. Whenever I thought of Lexi's smirks, I grew more and more nervous. He was finishing dinner, but about 15 minutes later, he knocked on the door. We went up to my room. Lexi's up to something, I complained. She has a great new idea, but I don't know what it is. Then how do you know it's great? Because she smirked. We need to earn more money. Faster. And you have another horrible idea, said Malcolm. His lack of faith in me was a bit depressing. No, I have an excellent idea. Even though the door was closed, I whispered just in case Lexi had her ear against the wall, snooping. Although when I put my ear against the wall to snoop on her, I usually can't hear very much. Lexi hates snakes, I said. When we were younger, I found a garter snake in the lawn, and Lexi just freaked. Let's fill her bed with snakes. I imagined Lexi turning back her covers and finding a dozen pythons wiggling around in there. I laughed out loud and rubbed my hands together. Said Malcolm. Why do you want to put snakes in her bed? Because Lexi hates them. But how will that help you earn more money? How do I know? I don't care. I just like the idea of putting snakes in her bed. Do I need another reason? There was a pause before Malcolm spoke again. Where would we find snakes? I don't know, I admit. That was a problem. It would take days to capture enough of them to fill Lexi's bed, and I didn't have time to waste. Still, it was a good plan. Maybe someday. Just look out for reptiles in general, okay? Malcolm rolled his eyes and shrugged. I took the money I'd earned that day out of my pocket and put it on my bed. Thanks to Malcolm, I had earned $30 on the nose, minus $6 for Malcolm, plus $4 in tips. Malcolm and I didn't have to share the tips, which was good because doing all the math was hard enough without trying to figure out his share of that, too. Thank you, he said, stuffing the money in his pocket. I removed a shoebox filled with my secret money stash from the back of my closet. I shook it. Loose change jumped and clinked together. I won't lose this war, I vowed. I wadded up my new bills and threw them in. Malcolm peeked inside. That's all the money you have? He said. This is a lot, I insisted, but Malcolm didn't seem impressed. Don't blame me. You're my accountant. You're supposed to make me rich. Malcolm grabbed some of my bills and began straightening them and then piling them into a neat stack. You should open a bank account. Then you could earn interest and make even more money. Anything that made me more money sounded good to me. How much more? Can I double or triple what I have in 2 weeks? Let's figure you'll earn 1% annually, compounded monthly. You might make about 7 cents. I grabbed the bills from Malcolm's hand, scrunched them into balls, and threw them back in the box. Straightening my bills had made my stash look even wimpier. 7 cents? No thanks. And I like my current money-keeping system, thank you. Scrunching up wads of money and keeping them in a shoebox is not much of a system, scoffed Malcolm. Maybe not, but it's my system, thank you, and money is worth the same no matter what shape it's in, as long as it's not ripped in half. Still, I didn't want to think about how much more I still had to earn. Honestly, do you think we'll make it to $500? I bit my lip. Malcolm hunched his shoulders. I don't know. It'll be close. It's not impossible. Not impossible? I punched my pillow. That's not good enough. You should see how superior Lexi acts around me. I have to win. I slammed my fist on my bed, but I missed and partially hit the bed frame. It really hurt. I stuck my knuckle in my mouth. My tongue helped it feel better. We need to do something, I said after my fingers stopped throbbing. My mind bubbled with possibilities. We always have the snakes in bed thing. Forget the snakes, Malcolm leaned back on my bed. Starting a business takes time. I don't have time, I reminded him. I need to up my game, make my dog empire grow with leaps and bounds. My brain was churning. I could break the world record for the most jelly beans eaten in one day, and then when I'm on TV, I could tell everyone about my dog business. I love jelly beans, mostly. I mean, I don't love every flavor, like black licorice. No one likes black licorice, but you have to eat those too if you're going to break a jelly bean eating record, which is why breaking that record is so impressive. Malcolm just shook his head and said I needed to give it some thought. After he left, I paced in my room thinking. I paced for so long that when I went to bed, my legs felt like they were still thumping back and forth across the floor. I sat up, opened my shoebox, and wadded my bills into a tighter wad. It made me feel a little better. Chapter 18, Sunday, March 18th, money saved $176.01. I dreamed I was trapped in a cage at the pet store surrounded by other dogs. Thumper was there. So was Marta. I was tired and hungry, and my feet hurt. But when the pet store people came into my room, they weren't people at all. They were enormous pink cats standing on two legs like people in cat suits. I yelled for them to let me out because I wasn't a dog, but a kid, but the cats ignored me because they were having a giant cat party. They batted around huge balls of yarn and played pin the tail on the sardine. There was a disco ball, too. It wasn't quite a nightmare, but it was close enough that when I woke up, I was shaking. But it gave me a great idea. I called Malcolm immediately. I think I woke him up. "What? You woke me up," he complained. His voice croaked. I told him all about my dream. "What do you think?" "I think it's 6 o'clock in the morning," he mumbled. "Actually, it's 5:58. I hadn't thought to look at the time before I called. "Sorry, but what if I threw a party?" Silence. "Hello? Malcolm? Hello?" After a moment, Malcolm spoke again. "What?" I fell asleep. "Did you say a party? A party for what? A surprise party?" he mumbled. Malcolm's mom threw a surprise party for his dad last year. Everyone hid. When his dad came home, we all jumped out and screamed. Malcolm's father stepped backward, twisted his ankle, and knocked his head on a lamp. He spent the night in the hospital. Mom said Malcolm's mom would never throw a surprise party again for the rest of her natural-born life. "No, not a surprise party," I said. Malcolm exhaled. I think he was relieved. "Like an open house, so people can meet me and see how great I am with dogs, and I'll get all sorts of business." "What does that have to do with your dream about cats playing with yarn?" asked Malcolm. "Forget about the yarn part. The cats were having a party with games and food. I can do the same thing." After a short pause, Malcolm said, "But are you sure you could throw one? I mean, what would the dogs do?" "They're dogs. How hard can it be? Besides, I'm going to throw the dog party to end all dog parties. We'll have dog treats and dog games. Dogs can make friends. Owners can mingle and talk about how wonderful my dog walking services are. I can even charge money." "You can't charge money for a party." "Sure I can. Last year I went to a block party. It was free, but they asked for donations. Mom gave a few dollars. People always toss money into jars, or they feel guilty." I thought about my runaway dogs and other problems. I was quite an expert at feeling guilt. Plus, guilt is a great way to earn money. "I'll put out a giant jar with a donation sign. I'll drum up business and make a killing all in the same day, and I guarantee people are going to be talking about Otto's dog party for years." Malcolm laughed. "I have to admit, the idea isn't terrible." "I know, right? We'll throw the party this afternoon. You buy the dog treats and toys. You call our customers. You put up some signs. Let's go!" I pumped my fist. We were on. "And what will you be doing?" asked Malcolm coolly. "Resting. I'm the one that has to smile and play with the dogs. That's very strenuous work, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I really should go back to sleep." "You woke me up," Malcolm said, "and how is smiling and playing such strenuous work?" "I could tell you, but it would be too exhausting." I lay back on my bed and let out an audible yawn. "I have a better idea. You buy the treats, you call the customers, you put up the signs. I can't help. I'm going clothes shopping today with my mom." I scoffed. "What's more important, your wearing clothes or my throwing a dog party?" He needed to adjust his priorities. "The most important thing is me not getting into trouble, and I'll get in trouble if I tell Mom I'm not going shopping with her. I need to get a suit for my Aunt Jules's wedding. Isn't she the one that's been married 6 times? 7. You'd think you could skip a few. Malcolm's Aunt Jewel kept getting married over and over again. If you ask me, she did it for the wedding presents. It seems like half the stuff we have at home Mom got as wedding presents, and she was married only once. After getting married 7 times, Aunt Jewel must be a millionaire. If I got married, I'd get way over $500. Of course, that meant actually talking to a girl other than my sister, so I scratched that plan quickly. It's a lot of work throwing a party, and I had all sorts of things I needed to do. I called my customers and invited them. I think I woke a bunch of them up, even though I waited until after 6:30 before I called. A few grumbled and one hung up, but I told everyone to invite their friends with dogs and suggested they tell their friends with dogs to call their friends with dogs. Maybe eventually everyone in the world with dogs would show up. Although I didn't think we could fit all those people in my front yard, I promised treats, games, and the chance for their dogs to make new friends. Everyone would have the best time ever, hire me to walk their dogs, and I'd become a dog-walking zillionaire. Mom had bought some new printer toner. At first she was mad I used it all up last time, but then I showed her my notebook and told her I would pay her back as soon as the challenge was over. I told her I would even pay her back for her notepad, pencils, and more. I think she was impressed by how responsible I was being, so I made some flyers and printed them. They were amazing. It's Dog Meet Dog. You and your canine are invited to a dog party. Dog treats, games, guaranteed fun. Party starts at 2 p.m., sponsored by the You Oughta Call Otto dog walking service. Donations are welcome, preferably $5, but really, it's up to you. But don't be cheap. I printed 2 dozen flyers and put them up all over the block. Then I walked to the pet store for supplies. It opened up 10 o'clock, so I had to wait until the doors opened, but as soon as they slid apart, I ran into the store. I figured I had a few extra minutes so I could play with Thumper, but he was napping and I didn't like to wake him. Dogs, like people, must sleep in on Sundays. There was one more empty cage, though. Thumper's sister, Marta, was gone, probably adopted. If you jump around and bark, you get noticed, but if you're quiet, you get left behind. Lexi raised her hand in class and volunteered for things, so teachers loved her, while quiet Otto napping in the back of the class got overlooked. I guess that's not always bad, especially when you don't know the answers, but it was the point of the thing that mattered. Be yourself, I whispered to Thumper, although he couldn't hear me through the pane of glass, and because he was asleep, and be glad you don't have to put up with your annoying sister anymore. I ended up buying 2 bags of dog food and some dog toys for the party, a rubber duck, 2 fake bones, a frisbee, and a little screaming monkey named Chatterbox. I hoped it was enough. I loved everything I got, except for maybe that screaming monkey. Frankly, Mr. Chatterbox sort of freaked me out. You squeezed his stomach, and he went eep really, really loud. When I first pressed him, I must have jumped 2 feet in the air. I didn't really understand how a dog was supposed to play with a screaming monkey, but those dog toy people must know what they're doing because they have college degrees in dog toy making. Besides, this wasn't a party for me, it was a party for dogs. I hoped they'd think Mr. Chatterbox was a riot. Walking 10 pounds of dog food home from downtown is not easy. I should have brought the red wagon. I stopped to rest a million times and almost gave up. It took nearly an hour to get home. But you can't say you'll have dog food and not serve dog food. That would be like having a surprise party and not yelling, "Surprise!" Except that would be a great way to avoid a concussion. Once I was back at the house, I still had a lot to do if this was going to be the best dog party ever. I had to bring up our folding tables from the basement. We didn't have dog bowls, so I filled some of our nice soup bowls with water and some with dog treats. Mom was at work, but she wouldn't have cared. Maybe. I also made popcorn, since you can't have a party without popcorn. I scattered the toys around the front lawn, although I wished I had bought more. 5 dog toys for an entire party didn't seem like enough, especially if I got a few hundred dogs. I figured every dog in the neighborhood would come. Who doesn't love a party? I made small business cards with my name and phone number printed them, and then cut them out with scissors. But most important, I put a giant bowl on a table and a sign that read, "Donations welcome, $5 recommended." I threw in a few dollars so the bowl didn't look so empty and to encourage guests. People never want to be the first ones to throw money into a bowl. My giant donations container used to hold fish, but they all died a few years ago. Fish bowls get dirty. Eventually, streaks of green algae lined the sides of my bowl, and you could barely see the fish inside. Dad had to empty out the water, so he put all the fish in a bucket. But he didn't clean the bucket first, and it had kitchen cleaner in it from the last time Mom mopped, and the fish died in like 10 seconds. Lexi bawled for a week, even though they were just fish, and she never even looked at them ever. Fish don't do a whole lot. I paced nervously in front of the yard. Where were all the dogs? It was already 2:01 and no one was at my party yet. This was a disaster. "What are you doing?" asked Lexi, sticking her head out the door. "Throwing a dog party. What do you think?" "I think you're pacing on our lawn. I don't see dogs." "They're coming," I said. "Any moment now." Lexi scanned the street. "Still don't see anyone." She scanned the street again. "Still no one." "They'll be here. It takes money to make money. It takes brain cells to have a brain. Then too bad you don't have any." She shook her head, chuckled, and went inside. Just in time, too. She wasn't going to ruin this party like she ruins everything else. A few minutes later, the first guest trotted up, a small bald guy wearing thick glasses with a large black Doberman. "Welcome to the dog party," I exclaimed with my biggest smile. "You're the first ones, but we're expecting 200 dogs. 200? The man blubbered. He had some sort of tic, and his eye kept blinking, but not at the same time. It was sort of freaky. "Maybe we should go. Dodger doesn't like big crowds." He snuck a nervous peek at the Doberman. "Well, maybe not 200, I assured him. "Your dog will be fine." I couldn't lose my only guest. I pointed to the former fishbowl. "It's free, but donations are welcome." Dodger's owner took out a dollar bill. $5 is better, I suggested. The guy frowned but coughed up the dough. "I also walk dogs, you know." I handed him one of my business cards. "I'm not only great with dogs, but I'm ultra responsible," I said. The man looked at my card and nodded. "We could use a dog walker," he said. Bingo! Meanwhile, another party guest jogged up the sidewalk, a leash in her hands. She had a golden retriever that looked a lot like Alfalfa. I rushed over. "Welcome to the dog party. $5, please." "I thought it was free," she asked. "Donations are encouraged," I said, and pointed to the jar. She paid up. I was going to earn a bundle from this party. I made a list in my head of other things I could collect donations for. The Help I'm Stuck Living with Lexi Fund, the Help Me Find the Circus so I can sell Lexi charity, the Help Me Buy Snakes to put into Lexi's Bed Foundation. The options were endless. Too bad I didn't have more fish bowls. If I did, I bet I could have earned $500 by dinner time. I handed the jogger my card. "And I'm the best dog walker in town. Just ask anyone." "Well, not anyone," I added softly. "Let's get a treat, Precious," said the woman to her golden retriever, leading her to one of the food bowls. But the Doberman decided he wanted that bowl at the same time. He growled and bared his teeth as Precious got close. "Dodger, no," said the short, bald guy, tugging on Dodger's leash. The guy's eyes blinked randomly. "Back, Precious, back," said the woman jogger to her golden retriever. Precious was tough, though. She was only half the size of Dodger, but she stood her ground. Still, things didn't look good. "No problem," I assured them. "I'm a professional dog walker, after all." This was just the sort of thing that would impress future clients. I bent down and patted the Doberman's back. "It's okay, boy." Dodger snapped at me and then at Precious. "You're supposed to have fun at a party." Dodger snapped at me again. I took a few steps back. There are some things even professional dog walkers can't fix. But I couldn't stay to watch because more dogs and their owners approached. This was going great, except for the potential dogfight about to break out. $5, please." I pointed to the jar. The owners looked puzzled. "It's a donation," I explained, "but everyone's giving." Meanwhile, Dodger and Precious still barked at each other, but more angrily than before. Two of the new dogs barked, and another dog began to cower. A woman with a poodle walked up the sidewalk, but she saw all the growling and turned around. I bent down and whispered calming words to a barking boxer that had just come up the path, but it was like the dogs weren't even listening, which I guess shouldn't have surprised me. Then more dogs came up to the sidewalk. "Donation jar," I shouted. I'm not sure when Buttercup showed up, but I couldn't miss her yapping. "Yap, jump, yap, jump." Her squealing riled up a German shepherd that I hadn't noticed, which began barking back. I must have had a dozen dogs at the party. 10 of them growled, 1 yapped, and 1 cowered behind its owner's legs. "We have dog toys," I shouted, hoping some of the dogs might get distracted and settle down. Then a brown and black Dachshund, I think its name was Oscar, but I'm not sure about that, found Mr. Chatterbox. I heard the screaming monkey before I saw it. The loud "eep" came from behind where Dodger and Precious snapped, their owners still struggling to hold them back. As soon as the monkey made a noise, however, the 2 dogs stopped. They stared at the monkey, their eyes fixated on the toy. But it wasn't just them. All the dogs stopped and stared, except for Buttercup, who continued yapping and leaping. I have to hand it to those dog toy people. I guess they earned those diplomas. Dogs love Mr. Chatterbox. But the quiet felt even scarier than the growling. The air was thick with tension. Something bad was going to happen. I took 2 steps toward my house. Dodger and Precious continued staring at Oscar and Mr. Chatterbox, their eyes growing wider, their mouths expanding. Drool dripped off Dodger's fangs. All the dogs except Buttercup gaped. 11 dogs, 1 toy. Oscar dropped the toy and stepped back. I think he realized he was in deep trouble. When the monkey hit the ground, it made a soft eep. That did it. Dodger rushed forward. So did Precious. So did the poodle, the boxer, and most of the other dogs. Some of the owners were so surprised they released their leashes. Suddenly, we had half a dozen runaway dogs, but they weren't running away. They were headed straight for Mr. Chatterbox. I guess this is how people must act the day after Thanksgiving when they go to all those early Christmas sales and start fighting over the last Mega Robot toy. 6 dogs pounced on poor Mr. Chatterbox at pretty much the exact same moment. Even Buttercup got in on the action as poor Mrs. Linkletter shrieked, "Come back to Mama!" The poor stuffed monkey's screams were now screams of agony as pieces of face, fur, and arms were ripped to shreds by a horde of frenzied dogs. 2 dogs played tug-of-war with a leg. Another dog ate Mr. Chatterbox's head and then threw it up. I didn't want to watch, but it was like a traffic accident. I sort of had to look, even though it was horrible. Owners grabbed leashes and desperately yanked their pets away from the melee. Dodger's owner's eyes were blinking 100 times a second as he finally pulled his Doberman away. With no toy left to rip apart, the dogs lost interest. Luckily, no one was injured, not including Mr. Chatterbox, of course. He had basically disintegrated into 1,000 tiny pieces. "Who wants to play dog games?" I asked, waving the frisbee. Apparently no one. That was the end of the party. The owners marched off with their dogs, angry as if it was all my fault. "You ought to call Otto," I said, trying to pass out my business cards, but no one wanted anything to do with them or me. Dodger's owner even tossed my card back at me. Mrs. Linkletter walked away angry too, and I'm pretty sure Buttercup stopped yapping just long enough to snarl at me. But how was I supposed to know that Mr. Chatterbox would be so popular? Just as bad, almost everyone grabbed their money back from the jar. 2 of Mom's soup bowls had broken in half, and the rest were covered in dog spit. She was going to kill me. And I'd have to add the cost of replacing them in my notepad. I sat on my front lawn, my head in my hands, a piece of Mr. Chatterbox's arm on the ground next to me. I looked up at the house. Lexi watched from her bedroom window. When she spotted me noticing her, she closed the blinds, but not before I saw what I think was a smirk on her lips. I picked up the bowls and started to clean up. The war would end in less than 2 weeks, and my brilliant ideas were causing more harm than good. Meanwhile, Lexi was probably going online right this very moment to pick out cat clothes to buy for Fluffernutter. All right, that's the end of chapters 17 and 18. I hope you enjoyed, and check out the video for chapter 19 tomorrow.